Anjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Vidamayam Dadadi Swapatam Tikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Name Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Navadi Pashyatya Sakarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Vasari Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hey Shri Guru Gyanada Dinabando Svananda Dadra Karunayaka Sindho Vrindavana Sinahitavatara Prasidara Pranaya Prachada. Can you come a little closer? No. Can come. Prabhupada was always very important to me. He came very early, highly, and I would prefer if maybe you could sit here and more in the middle, a little bit more contact, and you can move to the back more, because you're long. Otherwise, I speak in Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you for the honor of speaking here on this occasion of the disappearance of this divine grace, Nikhilananda Swami Prabhupada, known as Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, and founder of this Hare Krishna movement, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, founder of the PDT. And so most of us who are assembled here today, they are already trying to devote their life to the mission of Srila Prabhupada, the lotus feet of Krishna's service. And so they are quite conversant with Srila Prabhupada's activities and lifetime. So I can only add to honor this occasion a few points, personal impression, and words are actually very insufficient when we speak about such great personality, Mahabhagavad, eternal seeing of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, still with whatever I can say. Just remembering this great soul means that we become purified and we get strengthened in our spiritual life. We feel His presence. So we see these wonderful temples. So this temple here, last Sunday we had so many guests here. And then there are so many temple programs going on, preaching programs, book distribution, prasadam distribution, context, academic people, scientists, also scientific preaching is here. some idea of Varnashram Dharma. And then there's these wonderful daily worship that's going on all the time. Srimati Tulasi Devi is here. And we're having these wonderful feasts also on special occasions that we offer to Krishna. So all this I personally can only see, and this is not only my conviction, but I think it can easily be perceived by everyone who researches the situation, that all this is nothing but the Shivarnita Ki, nothing but the manifestation of Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Whatever we see here in these books, the devotees, the temples, the prasadam, the kirtans, that is actually a manifestation of Srila Prabhupada's mercy on us, who are actually totally lost in the darkness of this fallen age, materialistic age, and didn't know anything about Krishna consciousness. Only by his mercy, one person's mercy, with such a great personality, we're actually all here and we have the wonderful facilities that we are seeing now. So it's not our facility, but it's actually Srila Prabhupada's movement. He founded the movement, and also Bhaktivedanta book trust. When you have a trust, even in legal terms, it means the trust must be continued in the spirit of the founder of the trust, for as long as it exists, even long after his departure from this world. So in the same way, this ISKCON movement is actually totally manifestation of Srila Prabhupada and his purity as a pure devotee of Krishna. And whenever there are some impurities, we can see that it's naturally due to our imperfections, because we bring in our impurities. That is, of course, there. But by following Srila Prabhupada, following in his footsteps, and meditating on him, these impurities will be reduced, and we will once again find his presence in this very place. Because the presence of such great devotee is not limited to a certain time and age, but it is actually eternal. We can have it when we seek it. And for the first time in history, there is such a great personality, such a great propounder of love of Godhead. And we have so much documentation also about him, like this movie. We see so many important people whom Prabhupada met. They are speaking about his mission, and it's all documented. When Jesus Christ came, now hardly anyone knows something tangible about his life, although everyone knows he was a great preacher, pure devotee of God. So little is known about the actual history of his life. There's so many different opinions. But here in this case, there's so much documentation that's available. His books are there unchanged. His disciples, still many of them are there, and they wrote so many books. I just saw you have a whole collection, Guru Das book, Harisari book, Tamakrishna Goswami wrote book, Satsvarup Maharaj wrote book, Srila Kirti wrote book, and many other disciples who were with Prabhupada for some time wrote how he changed their lives and how he actually shaped their lives. And then again also about his activities, daily activities, and they were all unusual and wonderful and transcendental. So it's not that sometimes when personality like Jesus Christ or Buddha comes, and some people, they see that personality and they cannot recognize him at his lifetime, and then later after, then they realize that was the Messiah or whatever. But in this case, actually, as far as I remember, many of us, including myself, were actually after a short time we were aware of it, that this is really special, what we are allowed to share here in this lifetime. At every moment there's something very meaningful. And it's not based on a big like hype or some artificial, for that it was too austere or some artificial passion or something like that. But we were aware that here is actually that great personality was predicted by the Vedas. That great personality we've always been looking for. Such great personality as is written in so many holy books of the world, described here, he is, like they say, the Son of God. So he is the associate of Krishna. And we can participate as if we were a part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita Lila. So another transcendental description like this. We actually knew, especially in this last week we spent with Prabhupada in England, we knew this time will never come again. At the same time, it's like eternal story that's going on that will enter the history of the world forever because of his greatness. And for some reason, although we are totally undeserving, we are allowed to actually participate in that a little bit. Maybe a little bit from the edge or whatever, but we are allowed to be there and actually witness and see him and hear him talk and feel his presence. So that was really something that practically everyone who spent some time with this mission at Srila Prabhupada's time will never be able to forget. Not in this life, and I think also not in the next, because it is a transcendental experience. It's not limited by time and space. So Srila Prabhupada, as we know, Srila Prabhupada's coming was also predicted even 500 years ago by a great devotee called Lochandas Thakur, who was a follower of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, pure devotee. And he wrote one biography of Lord Chaitanya in like completion of other existing biographies. There were several biographies of the life of Lord Chaitanya. And his biography was kind of condensed form, giving some of the leelas. And he wrote that book, Chaitanya Mangal. And that book, we find that place where he describes that very soon, he doesn't say very soon, he said in the future, soon, he said, as far as I remember, there will be a great personality coming from the spiritual world, from Krishna Loka, who is the associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in fact one of the leading devotees from the spiritual world. And Bhakta means the leader of the devotees from Krishna Loka, eternal associate of the Lord. And he will actually spread this mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. So that prediction was very clear. And when we think about it, Lord Chaitanya spread this mission all over India, but he left it to Srila Prabhupada to actually spread it all over the world. And it was Srila Prabhupada, nobody else, who did that and who is that personality. There's also other predictions about Srila Prabhupada's coming at the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the first one preaching in English language, writing books in English. He lived about 150 years ago, as far as I remember. More than 100 years ago. And he was a very important personality in India. He had a very great position as a district magistrate and a judge. And very responsible. He had 12 children and was a pure devotee of Krishna and also eternal associate of Krishna. Just like his one of his children then became the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj was one of his older sons. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also discovered the place where Lord Chaitanya appeared, and he retired earlier before he had to, because he wanted to be in Mayapur and actually discover these places and to research there. And from there, from his house, you can see Surabi Kunj is there. This holy place from where Bhaktivinoda Thakur was trying to start his Namhata system of spreading and preaching Krishna consciousness. And his son found also a great, as far as I remember, Gita Press, it was called also, for publishing books, literature about Krishna consciousness and spreading it everywhere. But that was all taking place in India. That was all taking place. So they discovered actually the actual birthplace, appearance place of Lord Chaitanya, to the big temple there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he collected the money for that. And then in 1896, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was sending one book to a library in the West. So as far as we know, that's the first book that got actually to the West in English language about Krishna consciousness. And devotees later found it in that library in Canada. And this year is a very special year that the first book went to the Western countries in English language from our Sampradaya, from the succession of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and making Krishna consciousness, introducing Krishna consciousness to the scientific community, scholarly community. But it was just placed in a library there, and it's still, as far as I know, still there. And that year, there was no coincidence. It was 1896. Anyone knows the significance of that year, 1896? I think everyone knows, therefore you're smiling. That was the appearance year of Srila Prabhupada, 1896. Just 1 year after Janmashtami, Srila Prabhupada appeared in this world. And so this world was, India was governed by the British, and Krishna consciousness was almost unknown. Whenever Hinduism was presented in the Western world, there was just some scholars and scientists. They considered it like a pure curiosity. And when people appreciate some aspects of it, it was mostly impersonal, rendering, a very general, vague rendering of the teachings of the Vedas. Nobody actually knew about Vaishnavism. Krishna consciousness is very ancient, eternal religion of the soul, which is also monotheistic religion, as we discussed yesterday. So it's not that monotheism was invented somewhere in Egypt or in the Middle East. But monotheism is the basic essential teachings of the Vedas, especially the Puranas and Bhagavad Gita. So this monotheism, that there's one supreme personality of Godhead, and all that knowledge about Him and God consciousness, science, it was also explained by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One book was on the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam, its ethics and precepts, as far as I remember. So that was a very scholarly book. So few people could appreciate it, but basically it was unknown what is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Although he is predicted in so many Vedic scriptures as the Yuga Avatar, and that this movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be spread in every town and village of the world. So many people in India who were sincere Vaishnavas since the time of Lord Chaitanya, just like in Bangladesh, when we went preaching in Bangladesh in the 80s with Vyasaki and others, we found in some remote villages very nice Vaishnavas who were still living like at the time of Lord Chaitanya, very nice brahmacharis. And they were totally surprised to see us. They never expected it. They saw us and they were in ecstasy, they were embracing us, and now we actually believe the prediction comes true. We thought it's exaggeration, now we see it's actually coming true. That in every town and village of the world, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's glory will be spread, and the teachings of Krishna and the holy name will be heard all over the place, in the remotest part of the world. Not only in Denmark, but even in Iceland, in Africa, wherever we go. People, when I meet Africans, when I preach Krishna consciousness, sometimes taxi drivers in Germany from Africa, I just say it's about Hare Krishna, immediately they take the book. They have such a good impression now. So before, nobody knew about it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he predicted, because he was living there in this very nice little house, and the river, Chalangi River, facing what's now Mayapur Chandradaya Mandir, and these are the temples there. temple of understanding is being built. And that temple was just fields. And you could see very far to the yoga pit, past our land to the yoga pit. But at night sometimes he saw a very effulgent light and he saw like a spiritual city there. So he predicted that very soon that great personality will come. He said actually very soon, that great personality will come. And by his preaching and by his activities, people all over the world will actually start taking up the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he predicted very clearly, also very precisely, that they will all gather here in Srila Mayapur. And they will create a very great spiritual city. And there will be devotees coming from all different nations of the world. There will be people from Russia coming, and from Prussia, and which is like German, nowadays Germany, at the time it was called Prussia, some part of it. And he mentioned America and British and Russians also. And they will come to Srila Mayapur and embrace each other in ecstasy and chant the names of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Maha Mantra, and they will be very, very happy. So that great personality who was predicted then at that time, the description obviously fits only one special personality, and that is Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada from many aspects, from many points of view, is unique. And he was then appeared in 1896 in a family of pure devotees of Krishna also. Those who have been there, so Harrison Road, where Prabhupada lived, know there's so many Krishna devotees. And for a long time they have been worshipping Krishna in that beautiful Radha Krishna Mandir and Harrison Road. And Prabhupada, as a child, he would stand there sometimes for hours just looking at these deities and marvel how beautiful they are. And when he was a little child, he received, because he really wanted it very much, the little deity of Krishna, and he started worshipping also. And then also he introduced Ratha Yatra, even as a child, with very much seriousness, and his father helped him to build Ratha Yatra cart. And he would make a procession through all of Harrison Road, and all the neighbors were invited. He even printed invitations. And then prasadam was distributed, and there was more than just normal child play. It was done very seriously. Because Prabhupada insists everything had to be there, just like in Jagannath Puri. So now when I visited Chopadi Temple a few years ago, I spent 1 week there. It was very nice to see. They had one Gurukul school also. I don't know if it was from Chopadi or Jewel Beach Temple, both very impressive temples. And this Gurukul school, they also had one Ratha Yatra cart, a small one for the children. That was awesome. That's very nice. So then Prabhupada, he grew up and he also studied at the Scottish Church College, so he had some quite amazing knowledge of the Christian Western culture and of our philosophers. And his Guru Maharaj also was like walking encyclopedia. He had so much knowledge of all the philosophers of the world. He had amazing memory. But at the same time he was totally pure devotee, again one of the associates of Krishna from the spiritual world. And all these great devotees gave their blessings to Srila Prabhupada that he one day could spread this message to the English-speaking world, which means he could spread it actually all over the world, as Lord Chaitanya wanted, and all the previous acharyas prayed for. So he made it true, in spite of so many difficulties he was facing in India, as we all know. And his family wasn't cooperating. His business, which he wanted to use for spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, it was destroyed and damaged. Somebody stole whatever he had there. And one of the servants, while he was preaching and forming the League of Devotees in Jhansi, while he was Grihastha, he was printing the first Back to Godhead magazines during the Second World War. Some very amazing articles in 1944, very amazing articles written by Srila Prabhupada. on the causes of all these wars, the dark ignorance of identifying with the material body, and total absence of clear consciousness of God, clear God consciousness. So he had so many setbacks there, and his family didn't cooperate, so he went to Vrindavan finally at the age when he was in his 50s. And he didn't even have a warm jacket, although it was very cold in North India, Vrindavan at that time. And he was practically penniless. Still, he continued trying to publish Bhaktivedanta magazine at great difficulty. And people always ask him, why are you doing this at your age? You could just retire and take it easy. But he said, no, I have a mission here, so this is my contribution. Please take one magazine. And then whatever he got, he spent it, he saved it. He would walk for miles, sometimes not using a bus, just to save the bus fare and the heat of the summer in North India, just so he could somehow or other produce and publish these magazines as had been ordered by his spiritual master, that he should preach. And whenever he visited, when he first time met his spiritual master, he was always there and listening. Others were coming, going, but his spiritual master very soon noticed the others are coming and going, but he's hearing, he's listening. So he gave them specific orders to spread these books in English language and all other languages all over the world. And that will be a very, very important mission. So whenever you have money, please print books. That was his instruction. So this is still, as far as I understood personally also, the main part of our mission, although it has so many parts. The book translation and publication and spreading these books in all languages of the world are very important. Srila Prabhupada also wrote it to me in the first letter to me when I was 15. I was living in the temple as a brahmachari, and I wrote Srila Prabhupada for initiation, so he kindly accepted me. In the first letter, he told me that I need some man to publish these books. Man, he said, I was 15. I need some man to publish these books in all languages of the world, so if you can do this, this would be very nice. So he directly asked us at that time, whomever Prabhupada met and was serious, to dedicate his life to this mission, very clearly and very unmistakably. So we took it as a great honor that we can actually place our life in the service of this great mission, and this unique mission of Krishna consciousness, this unique treasure house of love of Godhead, and the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So there can be many things said about it, but I calculated how many times I had the wonderful opportunity to see Srila Prabhupada, hear his class, come on a morning walk, attend an installation of deities, attend a public festival like in Sweden, a public festival of Srila Prabhupada, Hyderabad, temple opening in Vrindavan, Mayapur festival, and him visiting in Germany. So I added up with every class we heard, every meeting of important guests, where we are allowed to be also. On morning walk, I figured maybe 120, 130 times I had this occasion of personal association with Srila Prabhupada. And that was, of course, something, blessing that I never understood how I deserved it, but we were aware that this is really like a unique gift. But with every unique gift there is a big responsibility also, because when you receive such a treasure, you have to share it also. And we're just trying to figure out how we can share it with others. None